are here again for another episode of Living Luna, and this one's extra special because it is our first one with guests.
Holy crap.
So that is really freaking awesome. And not only are they guests, but we are being joined by the CEOs of and co-founders of the Body of Nine system, which is just an incredible system for learning about yourself and being able to tune into your physical body, which is something that as holistic practitioners, we're very passionate about. So we are so blessed to be joined by Susan and Martin today. And we're going to have a blog post and everything for you to learn all kinds of cool stuff about them. But let's go ahead and bring them in and hear more from them about this. Boop. So welcome. So glad to have you here.
Your first
We feel
guest.
very honored.
Yes.
And so we appreciate that.
Yes.
And we appreciate you guys. So
Yeah.
looking forward to having a fun conversation.
And who knew that your first video podcast would have a doggy in it?
It was so cute. Yeah, so please introduce yourselves as well as introduce us to your furry friend.
Yes.
Go ahead.
I'm Susan Fisher, and I let's see, anything relevant. Yes. We Martin and I co-founded Body of Nine together, and we work together. One of the reasons we're able to work together very closely as a bonded couple as well is because we understand the work that we do, and we actually implement it on a day-to-day basis within our own relationship, within our work relationships, and our family relationships, and even with our doggy.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, our background is both in high tech. Both of us we met each other in California in the early 90s, but didn't actually get together as a couple until 2007. But we lived in the Bay Area, San Francisco area for about 30 years. And I was at Yahoo, I was at Oracle, and Susan was at Sun and various other high tech places. And so we eventually moved to Bozeman in 2015. But our background, and when we have the conversation about Body of Nine, I just want to reassure people that we have a very high tech background. We're not, what we'll be talking about may sound California woo-woo, but it's very, very body-based, which is why it's part of the exciting part of this for us, is that we're talking about helping the world understand our bodies better and use our bodies as a source of wisdom.
Yes, it's body-based, but it's also grounded in scientific observation. That's where it came from. It's working with 8,000 people in person from around the world.
And
so,
this young lady here is Phoebe.
Phoebe.
She's getting on for 4.5 months old. She basically chose us. We didn't plan on having a dog, but
we had a promise to each other. If either one of us asked to get a dog, we would remind the other that the answer is always no.
And here we are. Shows how well that probably
works. So well. No cat yet, though.
No, we're not doing that. No. When is enough?
Just you wait. So, I'm so glad you brought up the part about the scientific aspect of it, because I remember my mom I love her to death, but she can be a huge skeptic about things and like, oh my gosh, are you being taken advantage of? And she's like, what are their backgrounds? What is it? I was like, these people, like, just the confidence that you have in delivering your materials, your stuff, like you have worked with over 8,000 people. You have written all of this information down. Like, how did this start, the sort of scientific aspect of getting into this?
Well, the irony is it started at Burning Man. And if you know what Burning Man is, it's a giant festival in the desert. And I'd been working, I found out my natural number in 2002. And then Martin, he was the first person I actually identified on my own with no supervision from the people I was learning this from. And that was 2007. It took us 5 more years. And finally in 2012, we went off to Burning Man and decided to offer this as our gift, the identification. And so the first year it started with 50, 60 people just wandering into our camp and me saying, hey, you want to know your superpower? And they're like, yeah, sure. So that was our first real, ironically scientific, our first case studies into how do you recognize the physiologies in the world. And then each year we had double the number of people for 5 years until the last year we had over 1,000 people come through the tent in 9 days. And what you get when you get that level of exposure to people, when you're trying to actually understand them and you have a basic system, is such repeatability of micro movement. Like every 7 in the world stands up onto my mat in a very specific way. Every 9 in the world has softness in the outside cheeks peaks and flatness across the top of the chest. So I got to see the consistency of the physiologies. So that allowed us to narrow it down to muscles and bones and regions of the body where the activations happen. And it was just such a hotbed of people from all over the world. So we learned that it crosses culture, it crosses race, it crosses, it's more, you have more in common with someone that you share a natural number with than anybody in your family or, you know, most of the people that you work with.
So while we work as a pair, and part of the growth into this business was learning how to be together and work in something that is actually kind of intense at times and delivering the best possible experience to the people.
You haven't seen it yet.
Deliver the best possible experience. So while Susan was working physically, after Susan and I worked together to identify, I would talk to and listen, mostly listen, to the 8,000 people. And we could determine what was common for each of the natural numbers. And I would go and I would test and say, well, other people have told us this. Does this resonate? And some people would be like, no. And so other people were like, how do you know that about myself? And so after doing this, and we jokingly say we're going to be 10 years to an overnight success, and this is year 10. But the ability to listen to other people and observe, because we didn't discover this stuff. We just brought it back out. We were observers and we were repeaters and we listened. And listening is so important in everything that we do. But at the same time, we were also researching a bit about the past. Did this magically suddenly appear in 1990 or something? The answer is no. The Egyptians knew about this BC 3500. The Chinese knew about it. The Indian continent still covers it. So all we did was take the history in the past that got brought back to the Western world by Gurdjieff in the 1900s, became the Enneagram. The people that taught Susan realized that there was a physical component relationship between the Enneatype, as they called it, and what became Body of Nine, natural numbers. And so we took the idea and refined it, because Susan was taught how to activate all 9 in the body, and some idea about where they were, not fairly accurately.
In the beginning, it was the thought that they were points.
Yeah.
There may be a central point to each one, but there's absolutely a set of muscles and bones and fascia that are involved in activating each one of them, and they're quite different.
As far as we know, nobody else in the world was aware of this physicality. What bones and muscles. We talk to doctors, we talk to physical therapists, we talk to people that are body workers all the time. And there's a resonance, there's an understanding, and people sort of tweak what we tell them. But no one's ever said, no, this, you're not moving from here, you're moving from down here somewhere. So we do a lot of work in terms of the body stuff with people. The people we work with, it's always about we start with the body. Because if you're going to start, you can't start with a woo-woo, because people go in their heads, and it's not really woo-woo.
No, it's not really, it's not woo. It's a reality of our physical experience of life. There are 9 ways in which people can, we ride our bikes frequently, and often when I'm riding my bicycle, I'll just get something. And today it was like, oh, it's your physical extrasensory perception as a way of describing this. We have our basic senses, but the way they work and the way they come together and the way our bodies use them are actually somewhat different. And they give us something that's more than just our physical senses.
So if I may just step out back a second here, there's probably a lot of people saying, well, what the hell are you talking about? So as a quick overview, my natural number is 5, and part of that is giving context. So let me explain the context for our listeners.
Love the context there.
So there are 9 centers in our body, and we can identify the muscles and the bones and the fascia that make up those 9 centers. One of those 9 centers is determined and what we call activated, or is active, before birth. People that have had babies know that the way the babies move around the womb is different. So as soon as a baby is born, we can look at them and see how they move and say, this is the natural number for this baby. So there's no questioning involved. It's all about movement and how you grow.
And the structure.
And the structure.
And the muscle hold of the face.
Yeah. How you grow, how you move.
How you use your eyes.
And how is the way that we can start to determine someone's what we call natural number. Your natural number determines your physical, spiritual, relationship, and data-based, as in how you process data, reality. It is your nature. It defines, as we said, Burning Man, your superpower. You have superpowers. You have magic.
Or your natural extrasensory perception.
Yes, exactly. What is your natural purpose? And most of us, or some of us at least, are lucky enough to have found a purpose in life that matches our natural purpose.
Or at least is supported by it.
Yeah. And so this alone would be kind of interesting. But what makes it fascinating and vital to humanity is that the numbers don't repeat in families.
That has always fascinated me with this system. And how did you figure that out? Because I've been trying to figure out what in the world some of my family members could be, and like I have no idea yet because I don't.
Families are the hardest ones to figure out.
But you may get some extra hints when you come because you're coming over to September, so that'll be fun.
Yeah.
So you'll get some training in how to do some of those things, at least a little way. So we figured out by literally looking at the data. We realized after a couple of years that the numbers didn't repeat, and we thought, well, this is strange. How can this possibly be? So we kept digging, and we found that even in families of 9 people, 2 parents and 7 kids, the numbers don't repeat. 8th child is always the same as one of the parents. The 9th child is always the same as the other parent, whichever way around it goes. And there's a tiny chance that after the 10th, they start to repeat, which is fascinating. We've no idea. And so,
repeat in the order in which they came in the first place. Right. We just found a family with 13 kids and 2 parents. We're hoping that they'll let us work with them. We don't run into families that large very often, so our sample size is tiny. But
so what this leads to, though, is, and the thing that we sort of don't always dig into, is that the numbers mean things. We have no idea how the numbers got assigned, but we do know there's a lot of numerology and there's a lot of data about how the numbers work together, what numbers work well together, what numbers don't work as well together. Well, everybody can work with anybody. We're not saying that there are some that are very rare.
Some that are easier than others, slightly. But any two combination of natural numbers can create something special.
So,
or 3, or 4.
So, and one of the things that we've assumed, and I think the data shows, is that we are attracted to people or attracted to natural numbers that we know. So if we're lucky enough to have loving parents and we meet someone that has a natural number like one of our parents, we recognize that love, we recognize that affection, and we can be attracted to it. And the alternative is also true. If you go to school and you were beaten up by a bully, then someone of that natural number may repel you going forward. So given that 80+%, 50 to 80, depending on who you believe, of our communication is body-based. And we have 9 different ways our bodies communicate. The rest is tone, and each natural number has a different tone, and the rest are words. And what the words mean is different for each natural number.
Right, so there's 9 different ways of using the same words, 9 different definitions.
To us,
a lot of words.
This explains most of the unhappiness of the human race. I know that's a big statement, but we really believe that understanding that people are fundamentally different in 9 ways helps the world move more smoothly. We use it in our relationship, we use it in our business, and it's really fundamental. And it brings us hope for humanity.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I mean, we're just laughing because, you already told us our natural numbers a couple months ago. So like whenever you're talking about how it affects your relationship and your business, like we're also,
living that. Right
yeah,
now.
We're business owners together. You're a natural number 9 and I'm a natural number 1. And it's like the awareness that you provided us regarding our natural numbers has allowed us to be more just cognizant of how we interact with each other and how we can provide for the business and our relationship in different ways based on how our natural numbers work. So
yeah, it's really invited a lot of authenticity into both of us, which, I mean, Living Luna, authenticity is in our acronym because that's like a huge part of our platform. And so this system really helped us with our authenticity. I know it's helped me lean into the bigger picture and how everything interconnects and how I can pull different people together to do different projects is kind of a big way that works because I'm technically the CEO, though as an LLC, I don't think we get to use CEO, but I'm going to claim it anyway.
Do it.
And like for you've really been leaning into like making very vulnerable TikToks about accepting people and that people aren't going to get it perfect, but if they're trying, like that's okay. And I feel like that fits us in our numbers so
very
well.
much. Yes. Yeah. It's almost a part of both of those things are part of the definition of natural number 9 and natural number 1.
Mhm.
So it's that's the beautiful thing. What it does is, as you say, gives you a deep acknowledgement of that part of you. It's always been easy. It's there. It's available for you at any time,
But
and it's what you care about.
but other people around you make it not so easy.
Mhm. So our nurture layers on top, and often hides us from this nature.
Mhm. Yeah. So I feel like the body of 9 definitely makes as soon as it immediately makes you feel seen and understood, which, with the fact that in, the first 18 years of our lives, or longer, like we're in an environment where no one else shares that number in our immediate family. We can struggle to feel understood and seen by them, especially if they're either not cognizant of how different people can be, because oftentimes in the past, especially, parents expect little mini-me's, and so if they aren't, if the children aren't, a representation of mom and dad and like this, or mom and mom, or however the parenting works, but if they're not like a some sort of like mirror image in terms of what they like, what they dislike, how they express themselves, that sort of thing, their worldview, then I've heard from different parents that they feel like they failed as parents, and it's like that's not how
How
that
powerful
works.
parents think they are, and then they are. What they really have is the power to wreck their children.
Yep.
And my mother says, don't say things like that. I'm like, but it's true. If you can inadvertently cause harm to your children when you look at them through the lens of yourself, your belief systems, your natural number, when you make up what their behavior means, and that's where we really run into so much problems. It's like, oh my God, there's something wrong with my child because they won't do blah, right?
Yep.
The way I want them to do it. And that desire to control and shape is what creates people who don't feel seen, connected, or heard. I mean, we're weird enough as it is as humans, and
We're all weird too.
Yeah.
if you layer this lack of understanding that there's 9 physiologically different kinds of people, and you don't tell people about this, which is basically what's going on in the world.
Yep.
There are 9 kinds of people, and we don't tell people about this, and that's
And-
right, that alone is a
Right.
huge
And
thing.
then there's other parts, because I tend to believe that the universe has kind of a harmonic sense of humor. And one of the things we do see is that the numbers tend to repeat across grandparents
to
So-
the firstborns.
to the firstborns. So as it turns out, your parents think, well, I was raised this way. I don't want to raise my children that way. But as it turns out, that's actually probably how they would like to be raised. Because
It's
of
one of those ironies.
Yes, exactly.
I'm really curious if you have ever had somebody bring to you like a photo of a grandparent that's passed
yeah.
on of their face to try to maybe guess at how they would
If
identify?
the photos are too old, obviously old photos make it so difficult. The quality of the photo is the difference. But we have had a lot of multi-generational families. I mean, for example, in my family, my father was an 8. My mother is a 1. My firstborn is an 8. My sister's firstborn was an 8. Her secondborn was a 1. I married a 1. This is not Martin, who is the father of my children. So that number was already repeated. So we went on into a different sequence. But if you look at like my grandfather on my mother's side was a 4. My sister's a 4. My grandfather on my father's side was a 6. I'm a 6. My grandmother on well, I don't know what my grandmother on my dad's side was. Probably a 1 though, because he married a 1.
And one of the things we do see is that, and Susan and I, this is our 3rd and final marriage for both of us. we do see that people marry, and it's a joke, but it's also real. People tend to marry people like their parents because
of the natural number.
Of the natural number.
That's actually what they're doing.
Yeah. And so if you want to heal the relationship with your parents and you're trying to do it with your spouse, that's one of the reasons that I think a lot of people's relationships don't work the first time.
Especially the first ones, because we go with attraction when we're younger. And then later in life, in our 30s and 40s, if we end up, having that first relationship from our 20s not work out, which is, 50% of the time, right? So what that means, if you don't know that this is going on, you can really put a lot of pressure on your spouse in a relationship that you aren't really intending to put there.
Man, and that's even not even stating the pressure of assuming that the spouse has to be the provider of all of your needs. There's already this societal pressure for partners to be the like sole person that provides all of your needs, your support, your love, all of that. And the fact that the expectation to like heal them, to be like helping you heal through your past relationship problems is like, that's just whole another layer that makes it even more difficult.
Well, Susan and I tend to think that in the past we had bigger families and you had all 9. And it is very clear that when all 9 are together, life is smoother, easier, much more relaxed, much less stressful. And, there's still...
It doesn't mean you're better understood by your parents,
no.
But at least you've come into contact in a large family of more than nine or more people. You have had close contact with all 9 natural numbers.
Yeah, and
there's no natural number out in the world that's going to be like, what's going on with that person? But if you think about it, like today, our families, maybe 2, 3, 4, 5 people, we might only have connection with that many natural numbers. And if it repeats with our grandparents, we're not getting any diversity there in those smaller families. So we get these pattern repeats in the family. Mm-hmm. For example, in our family, it's basically 1, 8, 5, 7, and a random 6 thrown every now and then. But so what that means is my family, for example, doesn't really understand 3 and 9 very well because there's no 3s and 9s in the family. And so that when I go out into the world, I might not know 3 and 9. And so when I'm trying to work with people, I don't know what to do with them because I've never had to figure out how to be with those numbers.
And in the past, big families had lots of aunts and uncles.
Yes.
And aunts and uncles are those different natural numbers. You got support from adults of each of those natural numbers.
Right.
And that's what we're missing.
Yeah. We have one woman, her name's Sue. She's a 5, and she got everybody. She's a huge family. And she got everybody in her family, all of her aunts and uncles and nieces, nephews, children. She's the only 5 in the entire family of like 35, 40 people. And that was huge for her because she realized she always felt really different. Like nobody saw her, nobody understood her. And she was absolutely right. Nobody in the family got her, and that just the knowledge that can provide. She just is so relaxed as a result. It's like, oh, they didn't see me. Good. I wasn't off base. They didn't see her. And
yeah, because you just want to be, like us as humans, we want to connect and feel like there's this concept of being able to quote unquote fit in versus belonging, like truly belonging. And that is a thing that we struggle with because we're working through like, what does it feel like to belong? And when people are constantly trying to understand us through their own experiences only, then it can cause a lot of strife and feeling like you don't belong in certain spaces, instead of people having this level of like, that's the cool thing as well, because with the body of 9, people who are understanding of that model, as well as you, Susan and Martin, having this like curiosity for it, like people can sense this beautiful openness and curiosity in the fact that it's not like any number is better than the other. It's just all of them are different, and we're acknowledging that, and every number has its own strength.
Equal.
Yeah.
Equally needed. And it's one of the reasons we love working with people is because people feel honored and seen, perhaps for the first time. And it's really hard to feel that you fit in if you don't know who you are, because your parents, to some extent, had a really tough time honoring you for who you are, as you said earlier. If your parents,
it's not because they don't love you. It's not because they didn't try.
We're not blaming. There's no blaming here.
No
This is just something that we have to get over.
Yeah.
And And I haven't met a parent yet. When we said, it's like, oh wow, I wish I'd known.
Yeah.
They're not doing it on purpose,
Right.
mostly.
Mhm.
And so it's
Well, okay, this is an interesting piece, right? Because we have our nature and we have our nurture. And what's part of our nurture is our belief systems.
Mhm.
And the beautiful thing about this work as well is that it gives you the ability to observe from your nature into your belief systems. Because a
Mhm.
lot of times our belief systems are unconscious. They get instilled in us very, very young, and then they layer on top of each other, and then they get reinforced from society, our family, teachers, everything, right? And so this unchosen belief system, when we're in our late teens, starts to drive our lives, and when it's not conscious. So knowing your natural number activates the soul level observer in your being. And you
Mm.
can take a look at your behavior and say, oh, gee whiz, maybe I have value even if I'm not thin. Huh. Maybe that's true, right? Or, all of the different things that we take on in our belief systems. And then you have choice. And that's what's powerful, right? Because if I can choose the belief systems that I want to hold based off of my nature, my nurture, my life experience, then I can develop my own set of deeply self-honoring and self-loving beliefs that then enable me to live my life the way I want to.
Yeah, we tend to use the term physio-spiritual for people because we have a physical part and a spiritual part. And once you're active, once your body's aware, it starts a process of connecting you internally to your physio-spiritual nature.
Mhm.
And there's, as Susan said, once you can choose, part of that choice is, what is the universe guiding me towards? And how do you get away from terrestrial peer pressure?
Mm.
Because
Yep.
peer pressure
Terrestrial
peer pressure is, once you know who you are, once you know what your purpose is, once you are honored for who you are, it's really hard for someone else to tell you this is how you should be.
Right.
Because
That's very true.
there is no choice. Once you know who you are, you don't get to choose what somebody else tells you. They can say this is who you are, and if it's not you, your body just says, nope, not me. And so it removes the ability to control.
Right. Shame, fear, and disappointment, in our view, are the three emotions that are used mostly for control. So if
Oh,
I
yeah.
instill shame in you, you'll do something for me. If you're afraid to disappoint me, you'll do something that I want you to do. If you're afraid, you'll do something I want you to do. Right. So just being aware of and how those emotions are triggered in our bodies, and then how to get out of them is another beautiful part of this, right? So you have a simple physical thing that you do. For you, Safriana, roll the shoulders back, drop the shoulder blades on the spine, and breathe into your whole body, and then fear will go out of your body. Fear is
Yep. That's exactly
fear.
right.
And if you don't do that, oh boy, you can hold on it really good.
Mhm.
And then for I cannot, it's, if you lose your connection to source, you can get stuck in the shame spiral so fast because you measure against source, and nothing stands up to source unless you're connected to it.
Yep.
And to know that about yourself, it's like, oh, okay, that's normal for me. And Safriana's not going to do that. Just doesn't even think about that. What? Oh, what you talking about? Not an issue. And
I
so
think that's
understanding how. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, I think that's the phrase "that's normal for me" needs to be like a new phrase for the world, because the world tries to place normalcy in one category, and if you aren't that one thing, then you are weird, in the bad sense of weird. You are abnormal, you are outcast, you are all of those things. And it's just like, if we can just accept what is normal for us, and we don't have to explain ourselves. Like, there's so many times, like we could list off all the different types of examples that we've done in different past podcasts of like, why do we have to out ourselves in terms of like our trauma, of like, no, I, based off of my preferences or my own body needs, I don't want you to slam the door, or I would, I want you to talk quieter, or like, these are the things that I need for my body's sake. And then people are like, well, why? Like, do you have a diagnosis of something for me to validate that? And it's like, no, can we just instead just respect people's, like, their own normalcy? Like,
Yeah. And that version of societal normalcy too isn't any of the natural numbers. It's almost like this
God, no.
zero,
Yeah.
right? This zero where no
It's
one
almost
wins.
the anti-natural number. It's
Yeah.
like, no, you can't. The gift you offer doesn't have value. In fact, we're going to make it terrible that you offer that gift. It's and because your gift isn't the same as my gift, I'm not interested in your gift because I don't even know you're offering it.
Right.
And I don't know what it is,
to
and
create
I
a
don't understand what you're
societal
talking
number.
about.
It's zero.
And,
Well, yeah.
So, and for the people watching this as a video cast, natural number 1 and natural number 9 use their eyes very differently. We're 5 and 6. We don't need eye contact at all. But if you don't get eye contact, you're not going to be doing your job, and people aren't going to be experiencing the wonder and your gift of helping us move into this space of source. So just understanding that some need eye contact and some don't. Some are relationship focused, some aren't. No one is wrong,
Right.
in these things. It's
In fact,
all a gift.
And the gifts fit together. I mean, you take your 4 fingers and put them in between the 5. I mean, it fits. And this is how the gifts fit together. It becomes a whole, and so everything gets easier. So you remind us again that we should respect each other, that we should start with relationship. We should honor and treat everybody fairly and equally. And I rely on you to bring that. I have something else I'm supposed to do, and I go fast and I'm loud and I'm powerful. And sometimes I'm needed and sometimes you're needed.
Mm-hmm.
And when we dance together in a way that's aligned with all 9 bringing their piece, then your job is needed. We've done that job. Everybody's connected. We're good to go. Okay, now what's the next thing we're going to do? We asked Susan that question. What are we going to do next, Susan? And then we go to Safriana and we all take a deep breath and expand our awareness of the universe and recognize that we're just a speck, but a speck nonetheless of everything. And the job is very big.
And we can do it if we work together in harmony.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
A lot easier than if we're pushing ping pong balls around hot air balloons like 6s tend to do from the 9 perspective. And then we take it, Martin's got a different version of a big picture. What do we know?
How do we explain what we know? How is it that I can help people grow into what it is they can grow into?
Mm-hmm.
So each of the 9 has something super special that they offer.
Mm-hmm.
We all can become more effective if we learn to activate the other natural numbers and also to understand. So if, for people who are watching the video, Safriana, the more she's paying attention, the less she looks like it.
I've started telling my clients that. I actually have started telling, because my therapy clients, they're like, is everything okay if I get real stony faced?
Yeah.
And then I'm like, no, this is actually a good sign. I'll say that now. So
Yeah. It means I'm really paying attention and I'm processing it within the whole of everything.
It's if I look like I'm paying attention, you got to put.
And so just that misunderstanding, whereas I kind of, just a slight lift in her chin, her throat is very activated, her eyes are soft, and she's holding the connection here for us and everybody in the audience.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean,
and we're all doing our jobs.
Yeah. And I mean, I think that's something that Safriana and I definitely have started to pull in when we start collaborating with other people. Like, we were working on like our brand, and we noticed that the person that we were working with had a different way of doing things than us, but we realized that was needed because, we were getting stuck in a cycle together in terms of how to, really push our brand further. So we needed a push. We needed someone that was different, like very different than us. And so we found someone that I don't think they know their natural number, but we could tell that they were just a different wavelength than we're used
As
to.
if driven by a motor, really. I
Yeah.
wonder if they match Susan.
Yeah.
That power, that like drive, that like emphasis and passion really describes this person. So
Yeah. And so it really helped push us, and we wouldn't be where we are now without them. Compared to if we found a person that was another 1 or another 9, we probably would be in a more stuck space.
Yep, absolutely.
Potentially, yeah.
I mean, Susan and I, we are really good at doing the identification because of our 5 and 6ness, but we need all the other numbers before we can do most of what we do.
Right. And anything we do with our company, we try to, especially big decisions, directional decisions, messaging decisions, we try to get all 9 perspectives included.
Which makes messaging hard because you need 9 different ways to message. But that's
Well, and that's where we realize that it's through partnering, because you just partner with people of all 9 natural numbers, and then you've got what you need, because you're working together, and then it makes a big difference.
yeah.
Because there are 9 ways of talking about
anything.
things, right? Anything.
So as we kind of get to the end of our time here, I want to throw it to both of you to really highlight how figuring out your natural numbers helped you step into your authenticity. Like, how did learning this help you embrace who you really are? Whichever of you wants to jump in on that first.
You want me to go first?
Yeah, sure.
So I was in a very unhappy situation. I had 3 little kids and a drug addict, alcoholic, abusive husband, and pretty much made my life as hard as I possibly could in that scenario. But as I was coming out of it through a variety of different modalities, I had decided to become a life coach, just because I knew a lot about coaching life at that time. But it was the beginning, right? It was the beginning. And I found out my natural number, and it explained everything about me that I loved, that nobody else understood or honored. And it explained all these powerful moments in my life where I had known something that was important. The experience, I grew up in Europe, the experience of going into the cathedrals of Europe. They are containers for spiritual energy, and one of the most powerful places I've ever been. And my response to that was so different than my family, and I didn't understand why. So once I realized that what this was and how incredibly powerful I am, I got to start to love my power, and also to learn to use it effectively instead of just in anger. Because up to that point, I was just shut yourself down, shut yourself down, shut yourself down, blow. And that was kind of the sequence of my life. And I had no confidence in my own self and my own truth. So, I went from a shell of a human into a fully engaged, empowered person with a beautiful family and quite a bit of happiness and fulfillment. And I had none of that 15 years ago.
And I had a career in computers because literally I went to computers because if I got annoyed, I could turn them off. That's why I didn't hang around people. And Susan identified me in 2007, and I started to grow into my purpose and understanding that. And when I was at Burning Man, we got a huge amount out of Burning Man. There's all sorts of pros and cons of Burning Man, but it gave us huge gifts. And one of the gifts for me was, who did I want to be? I wanted to be me. It gave us the gift of giving rather than transaction. It gave us the gift of choosing love instead of whatever else one chooses. And it helped me grow into, okay, who did I want to be? I wanted to support the body of 9, learn and take this out in the world. I've had my palm read years, many times in the past. Well, you're a teacher of teachers and a teacher of healers. I'm a programmer. How does that work? But as it turns out, as time comes on, my job is to help people know there's a spiritual side to all of this. It's to help people know that there's hope. There's a way for us to evolve as human beings. And my purpose went from computer programmer sitting in my room, just programming, not talking to people, to loving being with people and helping the world change. So it's almost what we find, and you guys may have found the same thing, is that when we identify people get happier, they feel more in alignment. And as it turns out, it's really hard not to move in alignment with yourself when you know who yourself is. Bad grammar, but the idea is that.
Right. And that's what we see is that this acknowledgement of the power of your nature and the re-accessing your nature without even working at it, you will be more aligned from that point forward in your life. If you never learn another thing other than what your natural number is, it'll still happen. If you actually work on it to build your whole body's awareness of all 9 natural numbers, we start to evolve into a much more cosmically aware human with a level of understanding and tolerance and acceptance and joy and love. Yeah. You know, when I stand in front of people, people say, doesn't it exhaust you to work with people all the time? And I'm like, no, because I only ever see the best. I only see people's best. Yes, we have all this stuff on top. It's not so pleasant, but the nature is whole within us.
Having said that, you know, it's work. People that get their natural number identified had to be brave.
Yeah,
because it's going to change your
life.
life.
Want to take it somewhere, yes.
Even if you know,
yeah,
the ability changing who you are, starting on a fundamentally slightly different path for some people, you have to be brave. But the rewards are just astounding.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
and it's very empowering.
Oh yeah. We like what we do. We like the people we meet. I mean, it's as Susan said, we meet awesome people all the time. Yeah. Because the people that want to change the world are drawn together. And just as you guys, you know, we're all doing our part to make the world a better place. And you know, we love the people we're meeting because we firmly believe we can help them.
Yeah, and I just love this layer of the physicality of things because as therapists, mental health therapists, but trauma-informed mental health therapists, we know that the body component is essential in how we store our trauma and where we store our trauma and all of that. And, you know, I'd be fascinated long-term to see where that overlaps, you know, mental health and body of 9, because there's so much that, I mean, we could talk. I feel like we just need to do a series of
we'd love to do that. As you can tell, we don't mind talking about this at all.
No, and you'll, when you come in at the end of September, you'll meet Paolo. He's a therapist also, been working with me with this work for 20 years. And he's been through the somatic training and all these different kinds of things. And so he will probably be very interesting for you guys to talk to about how do you apply this in the realm of your therapy, because it's very powerful.
There's some indication, and we don't have enough data or research, that knowing your natural number and working on this actually helps people recover from some of the trauma. You need to do the work for sure.
Right. It's not a panacea for people that have been traumatized, but it is a way to recover more quickly. So going back to your body and having a specific thing that you do, it can also give you a lot of clues into why your triggers go the direction that they go.
The even numbers are much more body-based than the odd numbers. All of us had a body. It's how we experience the world, of course. But an even number that gets all their input from their body, if they dissociate because of trauma, that makes it really hard to deal with the trauma. Whereas an odd number, still informed by the body, but is not as driven by the body's input. So it's a little easier, but they do dissociate more. So it's a tough conversation.
Yeah.
Well, that tracks. Well, thank you so much for agreeing to meet with us and talk about this, because I mean, I get really, really nerdy and excited about archetype systems. And I think it's probably because as a 9, I enjoy a big picture that still organizes things, because good Lord, the swirl up there sometimes, I'm just like, give me some way to narrow this down. So I love archetype systems, and this one has deeply resonated with me, and I definitely think changed my experience in life. So I can't wait to keep learning about it. And just really quickly, if you wouldn't mind, I know we're going to link all of your things in the podcast descriptions and all over our socials. But if somebody was wanting to have their family identified, for example, what can they expect from that? And how would they go about scheduling that?
Well, because of the pandemic, we figured we used to do it all in person, but now we do it actually online, which is really opened it up for anybody. But you can do an individual session, a couple session, a family session, or a group session. Those are the different ways you can join into events or create events for your own community where you can come together to find out your natural number. So we get on Zoom just like this, and we ask you to do different physical things. We tell you about the system. We tell you what we think your natural number is, what we see it to be, and then we talk to you about that to make sure that you understand and it resonates. We want you to say, how did you know that about me? You only know me for 2 minutes, not, maybe that's about right. Yeah. So it has to be that. And you have to be happy at the end. If you're not happy at the end, we're very uncomfortable.
Yeah. And so bodyof9.com is the place to start all these things. And as Susan said, we have the single, the individual, couple, and family, which is sort of more of a private constraint, and then the group sessions, which is pretty much who knows who's going to turn up. So it really depends on what kind of experience you want to have.
Right.
Yeah.
It's, the group ones are great because they're less expensive and you get to see other people. And that juxtaposition is very informative.
But for couples and families that would prefer a better relationship with themselves, we can spend more time going into the dynamics of each of the numbers, because every pair of numbers, there's no pair of numbers that doesn't get on, but there's always the positives and the less positives about any combination. So,
relatively predictable, perpetual problems.
and certainly with children, because the ability to predict what children are going to need and how they're going to respond in the future, I mean, that's unique to what we do.
Yes.
Yeah. So cool. Well, I absolutely want to support the success of Body of Nine. Think you all are so fun and incredibly passionate and knowledgeable about what you do, and I admire that. So
Yeah, amazing.
Well, I can't wait to meet you guys in person in Bozeman.
It's going to be very
my
fun.
first
Yeah.
plane ride.
It's gonna be great.
It's your first plane ride?
Yes.
Yeah.
Just keep breathing. You'll be fine.
That'll be fun.
Don't hold your breath. That'll
Oh,
get you in trouble.
We'll just drug you up with a bunch of Dramamine. It'll be fine.
All right. So we're gonna tune out here.
Boop, ending recording.